wait for me. I'll just watch here. When I see he's gone, and when you're ready to hit the gavel, I'll switch.
Okay. I'll give you a thumbs up.
Okay.
Okay, it's up and running.
Regis. County and City Council for June 22nd, 2020 is now in session. Roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Arcaro,
Present.
Mr. Emery,
Here.
Mr. Goff,
Here.
Mrs. Ledford,
Here.
Mr. Moiseo,
Here.
City Manager, Mr. Hockaday,
Here.
Finance Director, Mr. Williams, not on yet. Law Director, Mr. Smith.
Here.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
of the
United States of America.
to the republic,
And
one
one
nation,
nation under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
For all.
Okay, we have the approving of our meeting minutes for a special meeting and also regular meeting. So are there any alterations or corrections for the meeting of June 8th, 2020? Hearing none, is there a motion?
A motion.
I didn't hear us.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting minutes for June 8th are approved. Are there any alterations or corrections to the special meeting minutes of June 15th? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
For a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mosio.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff, Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, special meeting minutes of June 15th have been approved. Move on to awards presentation tonight. We have another awards presentation tonight in absentia, and this award goes to Corey Schauberger. If you could read the
One moment.
certificate.
The employee of the month for June is Corrections Officer Corey Schauberger. Corey is an employee with the Pontiac Police Department. Corey's nominating supervisor, Chief of Police Michael Colby, had the following to say. Corey started with the police department shortly after 2016. Corey always comes to work with a positive attitude. Corey requires little to no supervision and is always doing something to benefit the department as a whole. Corey wears the uniform of a corrections officer proudly and is one of the first officers to volunteer his services. That is all.
Okay, thank you, and congratulations to Corey Schauberger, and thank him for his service. Move on to,
Congratulations, Corey.
pardon?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I was just saying congratulations.
Move on to a special presentation tonight, which we have none. And citizen comments. Did anybody receive any citizen comments?
I received one, Mr. Hockaday is taking care of that, but I also have been receiving a lot of complaints regarding fireworks in town. I didn't know if anyone else has received complaints about that. I know it's hard to pinpoint like exactly where they're coming from. It seems to be more prevalent this year and like a lot of evenings and almost every weekend. So I wasn't sure if anyone else was receiving complaints or if there's anything we could do about that.
I have not received any.
I have not received any complaints, but it does seem that we're hearing a lot more of them. It's usually the habitual offenders, I should say, on the east side.
If you should get any complaints, the best thing to do is tell the people to contact the police when it's happening.
Yeah.
That's really all.
I did say that. I just, I was wondering if anyone, I know that I just have, it seems to be rampant and around, I don't know, this area or something. And so a lot of people have reached out about it. I thought maybe you guys have also heard about it.
I've heard quite a few, but I have not gotten any complaints.
Okay. Very good.
Anybody else receive any citizen comments?
I have not.
Mr. Arcaro, I had one concerning dust control on Southridge Road and Hatches Corners Road. That section of Middle Road in between that area, but that was addressed by the city.
You say that it was addressed?
It was. The city did do a complete dust control out there. I think they thought they were forgotten, but it was addressed.
Okay.
Working over at Malik Park, cleaning up, I've had numerous thank yous and how it was making it look a lot nicer. That's it.
Very good. Moving on to communications.
I have none this evening.
Does council have any communications? Okay, if not, we'll move on to reports of the administration, beginning with City Manager, Mr. Hockaday.
Thank you, Council President Arcaro. So I have a couple quick updates this evening. First and foremost, I want to make you aware we have done a application through our Transportation Improvement District for some improvements on the east side related to some potential industrial development over there. That is a grant TID application for $250,000. We also resubmitted our ODOT Small Cities application. This is for 95% of construction costs, 5% city share for state routes within municipalities in the state of Ohio. We resubmitted the same application that we had submitted in the prior round that was unsuccessful. What we submitted was a $2.2 million project that will replace the intersection of Broad and State, including the signals, as well as the concrete road on Broad Street north to Jackson. It's a highly inclusive project that includes the street lighting, curbs, stormwater, as well as the roadbed itself. as you know, and I'm sure as most people have driven, that is a pretty poor quality road. It's met its useful life. There's really only so much we can do. That is probably the most patched road in the city of Conneaut, simply because we re-prepare it every year, with the exception of this year, for the Soapbox Derby. And there is a certain level of smoothness that is required by the national agency that certifies it. And it's getting to the end there. We've graciously received a letter of support from the Soapbox Derby for our application. We will have a hearing on that grant in July. I'll let you know. It does project out several years. So as you know, this funding takes several years to implement. But I just wanted to make you aware that we did resubmit for that this year. And we have been working on an ODOT safety grant for the guardrails on 7. So that's a forthcoming submission. Our Conneaut Coastal Wetlands project that council dealt with a flurry of various ordinances a couple meetings ago, that project has closed and transferred. So that is moving forward as well. For folks out south related to the Reesburg pipeline, you're going to see restoration crews out there. They're doing grass seeding and final grading, removing temporary culvert access pipes, those kinds of things. So you will see crews continuing to do restoration work to our south here along the Reesburg pipeline. So just know and be aware that they're out there. They should be wrapped up here near the end of June, maybe the first week or two into July, it'll be completed. So that's moving forward as well. Finally, I just wanted to make sure council was aware of a couple of items related to public works. First and foremost, our street sweeper had a significant issue. The transmission failed in it. And it was about a $12,000 repair on that piece of equipment, and the boom arm for the boom mower, which does all of our southern road mowing, that arm failed, and that's about a $4,800 repair. We also have in the attachments for the budget amendment that's on tonight's council meeting is some additional appropriation to cover street line striping. I think I shared with you the one quote a couple meetings back where we anticipated about 15,000. The best bid we've received so far for our street line painting program this year is about 25. That's significantly in excess of what we appropriated this year. So council will have to add some appropriation to that in order for us to move forward with that quote that we received. We have not been able to solicit a third quote. We have not gotten a response. So it's getting late in the season. We need to get this moving. So I would request when council is able to pass it, that we pass that additional appropriation for line striping. That's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Mr. Hockaday, I have two things. If you could give 2 quick updates on the Lake Road Stormwater project. I know we've had a couple hiccups there. And also on the Broad Lake Road paving. Just again, quick updates so people realize that it's just the base coat.
Okay, so for Lake Road, the crossing's been a little bit delayed here. They have done the additional change order work. I think they've had an issue with the protection agency, the Maintenance of Traffic Protection Agency. It was originally scheduled for Thursday, then it got rescheduled for today. Always Protection called us today and said they didn't have all the signage available that they needed. So I expect that to be re-announced either tomorrow or the day after. We will try and let everybody know through our social media accounts. So we're just trying to work with the contractor to get the best available date there. We're pushing the contractor to do restoration in some of the yards up there and get that started, because our work on the south side of Lake Road should be complete after this week. So hopefully that'll go into restoration. So that part of the standalone system, the stuff on the north side of the road shouldn't affect anybody else, but the one property owner that it crosses their property and they're aware of the timeline. Lake Road and 531 and Broad Street, the ODOT resurfacing project. Got lots of questions about the manholes and some of the cutouts. Just know that all the manholes are adjusted at the end of the project. Only the base course of asphalt is down right now as they complete all the side stormwater inlet basin adjustments. Then they will finish their sidewalk replacements with the ADA ramps. This only deals with elements in the public right of way, which is another question I get, why they don't replace the sidewalk going down the street. Sidewalks in the middle of the block belong to whatever property owner are there. Those aren't necessarily city-owned assets. They're in the public right of way, but they are the responsibility of the private property owner. In the intersections, they are the public's property, and that's why the ADA plates are being replaced in this ODOT project if those plates did not exist or conform. So once the final coat of asphalt goes down, manholes will receive a final adjustment. So we're probably only about 50% of the way through this road project, and it's intended to wrap up into July.
Okay, very good. Okay, if there are no questions for the city manager, move on to the finance director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
I just got a brief report tonight. As you know, our audit is due every year with the state auditor's office by June 30th of each year. I was just notified by our current auditor, Cantor and Associates, certified public accountants, that they are going to request a 30-day extension. That is due to COVID. They arrived here late. They weren't able to get started. They've been working quite a bit of overtime on the audit, but it is just too time consuming. So we are going to request a 30-day extension. We already received a 30-day extension on our GAAP financial statements. And the extension for the audit is my understanding that it was not automatic. You have to request it. So they are going to request it, and I'm pretty certain we'll receive that extension request. Excuse me. As far as funding, last month I had discussed that the Public Works Department or Street Department had a pretty large negative fund balance, and that was due to some SIB loan proceeds that we had not received yet. We did receive those. They should be reflected in your financial statements. We received about $147,600 in SIB loan funds. That brings our total to $803,000 in SIB loan funds for the parish loan project. That is a 15-year term, but it's only going to be a 13-year payment term. So right now we're looking at payments of about $75,000 per year. It'll be paid off in 2034, and it's going to accrue interest over that time period of about $185,000. We also received $196,900 from the Jobs Ohio 629 funds. So that fund is no longer in the negative either. And the last thing I wanted to discuss is the fund creation that you will be creating tonight for the local coronavirus relief fund. I received a notice from the county auditor today that we will receive 100 to 110% of our 2019 local government collections. Last year, we received about $377,500. So we will receive a minimum of that to a maximum of $415,900. The only caveat, well, two, is one, all the funds that be deposited into this local fund this local special revenue fund, they will have to be transferred back out to the funds that expended the funds. So council will have to do an ordinance each time we have to transfer money to a fund that expended funds on behalf of COVID-19. Now, these are not supplementing revenues. The money can only be used for expenses incurred by the entity in fighting and protecting from COVID-19. So I'm not sure how much expense that we will have related to that, but they do have to be documented, and they are restricted, and they will be audited by the state auditor next year. So I just wanted to let you know that before you proceeded to vote on that creation of that fund. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions for the finance director? Okay, thank you. If not, move on to the law director. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. First, the office had its first jury trial last week since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. I'm pleased to announce that Mr. Newcomb won the case. I think he's now close to 6-0. And he's worked very hard, as has Molly, as we've had some of these cases pushed back until mid-May. And Chris is working a lot of hours. Molly's working a lot of hours. Hopefully we'll have Jen back probably July 15th. But Molly has just done an outstanding job, as has Mr. Newcomb. We are in the process of finalizing the Key Bank purchase agreement for that small parcel of land where the drive-through window is, back in that parking lot. We hope to have a closing no later than September 1st of 2020. We have also last week finalized and filed the documents for the Truck World TIF agreement. So we should be clear with both the state and the county authorities on that. We're in the process of finalizing the documents for the County Human Resource ESID. The appropriate documents have been sent to the county auditor. There's a couple other agreements that need to be signed yet that we're waiting for some revisions on. These will not require council approval, as they've already been approved by previous legislation. But hopefully we'll have that taken care of within the next couple of weeks. Last week, we also finalized the Heritage Acre transfer of the, I think it's 120 acres on the east side for land conservancy. And as of last Thursday, the city is the proud owner of 120 more acres of land. I've been meeting quite a bit with both the Department of Health and also with the wastewater treatment plant supervisor, Mr. Bidwell. And we are presently on the verge of pursuing 3 different properties for collapsed sewer lines, laterals, or other things that are causing problems. And lastly, our office has taken some inquiries, and we've been approached by the police department also on the inquiries as to the use of golf carts on city streets. Currently at this time, that is not lawful. The state of Ohio has enacted legislation that allows us to do that. We have to approve an ordinance to that effect, which we have not done. There is another ordinance that kind of ties in with that called Access Roads to Trails. It's found in Ordinance 375.04 of the codified ordinances. I would encourage you to review that, particularly as to the use of ATVs and such vehicles along the entire route of Underridge Road, which now has a new stoplight and 2 truck stops. So I think there's some things you need to look at, and I'll be happy to put this into a memo or something if you'd like to kind of outline some of these concerns.
Kyle, what was that ordinance again you were talking about?
It's ordinance 375.04. It's codified ordinance.
37. You were breaking up.
375.04.
Okay,
And it talks about access roads to trails. So under current ordinance, there's limited portions of public road that can be used as access to get to a trail. And for the most part, I think a lot of these are reasonable. The one you may want to go back and revisit is the use of the entire stretch of Underage Road from North Kingsville to the Pennsylvania line. As there's now a stoplight and there's 2 truck stops. So I think you need to take a look at that at some point.
okay.
We could put that on the agenda for a future work session to discuss these.
Sure. Mhm.
Okay, any questions for the law director?
Well, I have one more. And what about maybe designating some streets down the harbor for golf cart access?
Actually, I have a question about the golf carts as well.
That would have to be done by ordinance, and there's certain requirements that have to be met. And I'd be happy to pass those along to you so we can discuss it at the next work session.
Okay,
So Kyle, this has been brought up before, and I've had calls and questions about it. And I was told previously that if a golf cart had turning signals, a horn, headlights, essentially safety components of a car, they can operate upon city streets. Is that not true?
That's not true. There has to be an ordinance adopting that. Typically, there's an association, not an inspection by the Conneaut chief or the Conneaut Police Department to make sure it has all the working parts. It has to be a licensed vehicle. It has to be driven by a licensed driver. It has to be insured like any other motor vehicle on a public street.
how would you license a golf cart? Is what you're
I'm sorry?
You're saying a golf cart would have to, well, we can discuss that at
Well, no, I mean, if you go down to Geneva on the Lake, you'll see that there's a number of golf carts down there, and each one of them, I can assure you, has a license plate on it.
I believe there is somebody in the city who has a side-by-side that is licensed, that has driven it on the streets for like D-Day or July 4th.
All I can tell you is that the state law requires that the city adopt an ordinance to that effect. The city has not adopted it. It has never adopted it to my knowledge. And I would discourage the use of anything other than a regular motor vehicle on public streets at this time.
Okay.
These are all things that we can come prepared to discuss at the work session for this topic. Any other questions for the law director? Okay, if not, we'll move on to reports of any standing committees. Okay, hearing none, reports of liaisons. Okay, I do have a Port Authority liaison report. First of all, they're glad that their docks are full and they have to put some people on the waiting list. So that's a good thing that he started off slow. On the 27th, the Conneaut Float and Fly will be having a ribbon cutting to officially open their business, although they've been open since May with the soft opening. And I did use their facilities this past weekend. Had a good outing out on the creek. Had some good weather. So they do a good job. They shuttle you actually to where you're putting in and pick you up when you're finished. So. And then finally, from the Port Authority, the city did assist them in helping with the parking problem down there on Broad Street and have installed the no parking signs and also painted the parallel parking spaces. So that should help that problem down there significantly. And once we get the contractor in to do the center line striping, that should finish the job. So they're appreciative of that. That's all I have from the Port Authority. Okay, if there are no other liaison reports, we move on to our ordinances this evening. And we have one ordinance in second reading, and we have 4 ordinances in first reading. So we will begin with ordinance 4120, which is in second reading.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to award the bid and enter into contract with C&K Industrial Services, Inc. for the sewer interceptor cleaning project at the bid price of $63,030 and declaring an emergency.
Hey, Mr. Hockaday.
Well, there's not too much to share about this one. That's apparent in the title. This is for the cleaning of the sewer interceptor line that is east of Harbor, north of Old Main, all the way to the sanitary sewer plant down on the waterfront. It did come in under bid by approximately $2,000 under the opinion of cost. Recommend its award. I know we can go ahead and place it in the third reading to address at the next council meeting.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments on ordinance 41-20? You need a motion to put this to second or third reading?
I make a motion. Go ahead, Terry. All right, Mr. Moiseo.
I'll make a motion to move ordinance 41-22 third reading.
Okay, ordinance 4120 has been moved to third reading. Move on to ordinance 47-20.
An ordinance to create Fund 801 ESID for the purpose of accounting for the receipt and disbursement of special assessments for the special energy improvement projects for the city of Conneaut.
Okay, Mr. Hockaday.
So this is for the PACE program that the city has, and we'll have to create this for all the PACE projects. Each PACE project will be listed under a different account under the same fund, but we have to create the ESID fund for the pass-through on the assessment dollars. I'd allow John Williams to comment if he wants to make any additional comments.
Hey, Mr. Williams, you have anything further to add up to that? You must be taking a break. Okay, any questions? If not, is there a motion to proceed?
A motion
To
move.
suspend the 3 reading rule?
We have to move it to second reading.
Yeah, I think at the second reading right now.
We only have 5 members.
Right.
That is correct. So we're moving to second, correct, Mr. Emery?
Yes, moving ordinance. I'm like struggling with my computer right now.
It's 4720.
Yes, moving ordinance 4720, the second reading.
Okay, ordinance 47-20 has been moved to second reading. Move on to 48-20.
An ordinance to create Fund 259 Local Coronavirus Relief Fund for the purpose of accounting for the receipt and disbursement of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act, funds from the County Coronavirus Relief Distribution Fund.
Okay, Mr. Hockaday, we were just informed of this, correct?
Yes, so we are compelled by the CARES Act to create a special fund. John did hand out and send out the specific language for which it's to be called, which Pam, the local coronavirus relief fund. Those funds will be deposited into our city account. We will have till December 15th to utilize those funds. Any unutilized funds after December 15th will be returned to the county auditor, who will then return it to the state per their instructions. It goes in this special fund. As we do reimbursements, we will be required to do transfers back to the host fund to reimburse whatever eligible expense we have. Transfers are going to be done by council, so council will have to approve those transfers. I think what we're going to do is we will try and limit maybe to once a month, every other December. So we're not doing a transfer every meeting. I don't know that that makes sense. That's a lot of council motion for not a lot of effect. So we will try and consolidate those to, like I said, once a month or once every other month. So we're not doing it all the time. But again, we have until December 15th to utilize those funds.
The only thing I would add on that is on the back of the letter from the county auditor, they have an October 15th deadline. I don't know if they just wrote the wrong date on there, but that's what they said. It says use funds by October 15th, or any unused funds will need to be returned to the county. So I'm not sure. We'll have to check on that.
I may have misspoken, so we'll double check it.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on ordinance 48-20? Okay, is there a motion?
I make a motion to move ordinance 4820 to a second reading.
Okay, ordinance 48-20 has been moved to second reading. Move on to ordinance 49-20.
An ordinance to amend the 2020 budget through appropriations and fund and interfund transfers attached here to and marked Exhibit A.
Okay, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. The first adjustment is for police equipment. They received a trade-in allowance from Atwell's police equipment, and we are just reappropriating the trade-in amount so they can purchase additional equipment with that money. As far as auto permissive, we're adding $9,200 to the line painting. We had $15,000 in there. We've used quite a bit of that money. There's going to be about a $7,000 balance, so we'll have the $7,000 balance plus the additional $9,200. And I decreased the salary by $5,000. We can back charge that to another fund. So the additional for auto permissive is going to be a net $4,200 dollar increase. And then if you look at the state highway improvement, I added a new line in state highway improvement. Even though gas tax is decreasing somewhat from the most recent collections, we're still collecting much more in gas tax than we have in comparison to last year. So the additional amount that I think we'll have available for line painting and state highway improvement fund is $11,800. But that is a new line item that council would create by passing this ordinance. So all told, we would have about 20,000 for line painting. I believe we have an estimate for nearly 25. But I talked to Mr. DeBell earlier today, and he suggested we put a few extra thousand in there just in case we need it. So that would be the amount available. And then on Malik Park, there's 8,750 increase. There was a project that was started last year, and we spent 11,750. We had an additional 11,750 appropriated to a particular vendor, but that vendor didn't complete the project, so we had to close that purchase order out. I estimated that there would probably be about a $4,000 carryover, but if we take that $4,000 that I appropriated plus this additional amount, it would equal the amount that we would have paid that vendor last year. So there should be $11,750 available to finish the Malik Park project. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Williams?
I have a quick question. What was that project, Mr. Williams?
Oh, it was a variety of things. I think they were putting new stone down. They were cleaning out the beds around the trees. They were I think replacing a lot of the mulch in that park. So it was just a variety of things. I mean, there was a whole
Okay.
list of things. I could probably get you the email on what they were going to do as part of that project, but it was just various
Okay.
things to help improve the park.
I mean, the two major things is the playground equipment had like weed matting and mulch base to it. And then it had like a 12 or a 8-inch curb all the way around it. So what we did is we pulled all of that out of it. They put new fill in there. They brought it up so there's no longer a curb like a trip lip around the playground equipment. So they fixed that. There's the little, I don't know what you call them. They're the little like kind of bouncy toys. You sit on them and they have like a big coil spring on them. We pulled all that material out of there. There's a new border around it and all new impact material underneath that. There was also quite a bit of just contract work and getting some of the beds squared up out there. So they did kind of the first entryway to the park. But the major area around the walking trail loop still remains to be done. So while we don't have a direct plan in place, I would just say go ahead and reappropriate it. And if we want someone else to come in there, these funds can be used in Malik Park. They can't be used anywhere else.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Gotti, did you have anything additional you wanted to add to that?
I would like, when we have a work session on that, we should discuss how we want to spend what money we have. Working there, I'm getting an idea of what we need before you didn't know what you needed. And try to streamline it, make it more efficient so the city can mow and easier upkeep.
Okay, we can put your thoughts then for the next work session as well. Okay, any other questions on ordinance 49-20? Okay, if not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to move 49-20 to a second reading.
Okay, ordinance 49-20 has been moved to second reading. Move on to ordinance 50-20.
An ordinance to authorize the city manager to award the bid and enter into contract with Koski Construction Company for the Chestnut Street from Lake Road to 16th Street and Middle Road from Route 20 to I-90 Bridge resurfacing project at a price not to exceed $549,000 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, I know we've been talking about this for a while. Mr. Hockey, you have anything additional?
No, the only thing I have in there is I have it for the OPWC total project amount. Our bid came in underneath this. Obviously, those dollars are leveraged 1-to-1 or 50-50. And, you know, there are some additional improvements we looked at in front of Lakeshore Primary that we would like to do. So I'd like to go ahead and award the balance of the OPWC money, and then we can go through and select kind of what additional pieces we want them to touch through there. The only other thing that I would note under this is this bid, we will not make it to the second meeting in July. So we will need to award this within 30 days of the bid opening, which I believe was the Friday before our work session. So we're coming up on that. So we may need to have a special meeting in order to move forward with this contract.
Yes, that's not a problem. We'll make sure it's taken care of. Any questions on ordinance 50-20? If not, is there a motion?
I I make a motion to move ordinance 50-20 to a second reading.
Okay, ordinance 50-20 has been moved to second reading. Moving on to any unfinished and old business. Hearing none, any miscellaneous business?
I'd like to thank the street department or the water department for putting down the mulch in the municipal parking lot. It makes it look a lot nicer. Thank you.
That was the water department, Rick, the water distribution crew. As you know, we could not have the downtown cleanup as we traditionally have with a large group of volunteers. So I appreciate the water distribution department stepping up and handling all of the downtown flower beds and around City Hall. Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It looks really nice.
Yes, they did a good job. Any other miscellaneous?
Mr. Arcaro, I just wanted to respond to a question that Mr. Emery had asked about a side-by-side. I'm going to walk that back a little bit until I learn more about what a side-by-side is. And maybe we can talk after the meeting, but there's criteria for what can be on the road and what isn't. And I'm not really that familiar with the side-by-side, so I'll withstand any further comment on that until we talk more.
Okay.
Okay. Any other miscellaneous business? Okay, I would just once again remind everybody to complete their census. Again, that's very important that we get that completed, so please consider doing that. Okay, if there's no other business before council, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mrs. Ledford.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, the meeting for June 22nd is adjourned. Thank you all.